Welcome everyone. Aman Masharia in Nairobi, and this is Africa Matters. The Democratic Republic of the Congo holds a general election on Wednesday, December 20th. We look at who is running for the top job and what makes it such a crucial vote in Africa's second largest country by size. Nearly 40 million Congolese voters will decide whether to give President Felix Tshisekedi a second and final term in office or choose a new president on Wednesday. They are grappling with high cost of living, and millions of people have been left homeless by decades of armed conflict in the east of the country. Opposition leaders are already casting doubt whether the government can deliver credible presidential, parliamentary and local election. It's a packed presidential race with 22 candidates, and whoever gets the most vote in the first round will become the next head of state. Let's look at the main contenders and what they've been pledging to do if they win. Security is a key concern for voters, particularly in the mineral-rich East. Incumbent President Tshisekedi says he wants to progress the fight against more than 120 armed groups there if they renew his mandate.
On December 20th, I need your votes so that we can continue the fight to liberate our country. I promise you that this fight will continue and we will rid our country of the M23 terrorists.
He's been challenged by opposition candidate Moise Katumbi, a wealthy businessman and a former governor. He wants to tackle insecurity by making the fight against militia a priority in eastern DRC and ending the violence.
We say no. That will not happen anymore. We shall tackle that problem once and for all. It's a very small issue. Am I clear? We are the fearless children of Goma. We shall finish it, and it shall not take us long.
Another frontrunner is Dr. Denis Mukwege. He is the winner of the 2018 Nobel Peace Prize. He says peace could come by reforming security forces.
You live in fear and you can't do anything about it. That's why I think that if tomorrow you give me the power to lead this country, the first measure I'm going to take will be to ensure that we have a structured and modernized army.
Arguably, one of Tshisekedi's main challenger is former oil executive Martin Fayulu, who many believe won the last election in 2018, although official results put him at second place. He's promising to end what he describes as 5 years of corruption and insecurity under Tshisekedi.
I feel capable with my proven leadership, with the skills I have, with the qualities I have, with the popular support, because the Congolese accept me. With all this, I can get the Congolese to accept my program and apply my program to effectively build a free, strong, dignified, and prosperous Congo.
But a prosperous DRC has been an elusive dream for its 102 million people, despite its vast natural resources, including more than half of the world's cobalt metal used in laptops, mobile phones, electric cars. Voters are hoping this will change after the election.
Given the rising prices of minerals at the international level, we have increased production at the national level. That's very good. That's what makes it possible to increase growth. But this growth is not helping the poor because it's a growth that benefits a political caste while the population doesn't benefit from it.
You can't build economic independence by relying solely on foreign investors. You have to promote national entrepreneurship. But when you have leaders who are largely corrupt or vulnerable to corruption, then they sacrifice even the country's economic interests.
Let's hear more from Noah Midamba. He's a professor of defense and foreign policy. He joins me here in Nairobi. So, Professor Midamba, thank you for making time. I'll just dive into the question and say, what is your assessment of President Tshisekedi's first term in office, and what would a second term mean for the DRC?
The thing that we must remember from the beginning of the Republic of Congo, there's never been peace. We started with Patricia Lumumba, who was killed, as you remember. Then we had Mobutu, then Kabila, now Tshisekedi. Most of them have been strong men, armed tactics, and without representation. And the most important thing to remember is that in the earlier part of independent movement in Africa, most Africans chose to be democratic. And with democracy, there is criteria. It doesn't have to be a Jeffersonian democracy, American type, or it doesn't have to be British democracy. But there has to be a representation. People have to have the freedom to speak, freedom of movement. It has not taken place. And we were expecting Tshisekedi to really be the beginning of a representative government. So Tshisekedi had the opportunity, number one, to settle the dispute between Rwanda and Congo, long-term dispute. You know, M23 started because of the Rwandese problem, and they moved to the eastern Congo, and they settled more or less. And therefore, you cannot expect them to return to Rwanda. So he had chosen to fight instead of creating harmony within the framework of the East Africa community. There's been a lot of other problems. Security has deteriorated during his term. Then there is repression that really has displaced almost 1 million people, so that 1 million people will not be able to vote. He has done, the regime maintained a sort of a state of siege, you know, so that there is no freedom of movement, freedom of communication. And all these things, once he's doing it, is damaging the reputation of the country and the idea of democracy. And therefore, people turn to arm as opposed to negotiating and settling and feeling that I'm now part of the country.
Of course, we've talked about security. And can DRC, as it is right now, deliver credible election, given the challenges they are facing right now?
Credible election is a real tall order right now. The reason why I'm saying are following. One, it is a vast country. It is the second largest country in the continent of Africa. And there is extremely poor infrastructure development. You know, from one, how do you get ballot from one place to another? And secondly, how do you make that sure those ballots are credible? And how can security maintain order to ensure that everyone who wants vote, vote? So when that doesn't happen, you can call that a credible election. I mean, it's as fair as you can get in a modern term. But by far, it's not credible election. At this point, realistically, he has the upper hand because there is a problem with the electoral commission, which is now more biased toward him. And so when he wins, and I'm expecting to win with a very narrow margin, so there's going to be issues, there's going to be dispute, like in Kenya. But in Kenya, we went to Supreme Court instead of going to the bush to fight. So this is what I'm expecting in his second term. I've not seen a really bold statement coming from him. Now, his opponent are talking about harmony. They're talking about governance. He's not using those terms. And therefore, good luck if he wins. But I don't see a bold, forward-looking, Lee Kuan Yew type that will take this country to the next level.
But we are talking about the challenges on Wednesday the Congolese voters will have decided. So what should the next president focus on? What should his priority be like?
The next president of Congo faced monumental task. Ability to be able to turn DRC into really the breadbasket for the entire continent of Africa. Because the country is blessed with rain, timber, productive field that no Saharian, or in this case, most Africans should not go hungry when Zaire can produce the kind of food that Brazil is producing. And so he faced the task to invest on land and food security, bring the people together, create the infrastructure development and the ability for people to extract and manage food and settle. That means it's going to have to deal with the issue of governance. It's going to have to bring the country together. It's going to have to be Mandela type of person, a person who's committed to get rid of the pilferage. You talk about corruption, that is where it is, where people go get rich and then they run out here to sell their wares and goods all over Africa. So here's a country that is a potential breadbasket for the entire continent of Africa. Here's a country that can provide wealth, unimaginable wealth for the continent of Africa. This is the country that we need to settle to take leadership in the continent so that the continent of Africa can grow.
Thank you very much, Professor Midamba, for making time for this interview and sharing your expertise on DRC election continent.
Thank you, Anne. I'm glad we had the chance to talk about this.
We head to West Africa now, where black soap is one of the most popular skincare products, and it's a large share of the region's $400 billion beauty and skincare industry. Despite that, many of those who produce the sought-after product struggle to survive, earning less than $1 a day. Dolapo Aderinokun reports from Odowa, Western Nigeria.
Abosede's husband died 15 years ago, leaving her to care for 4 children alone.
When my husband was alive, he was the one taking care of me and our children, paid their school fees, bought them clothes. He took care of our feeding. He also bought my clothes and shoes. We were merely load carriers in the market.
In desperate need of income, Abosede turned to a skill she'd learned from her mother, soap making. Traditional black soap is made from natural ingredients and gets its unique color from the ash of local plants and dried peels. It's mostly produced in West Africa and is known to have antimicrobial properties. These women work hard, and despite the growing popularity of their products, profit margins are razor thin.
I have been producing soap like this for the past 25 years, but there is no capital to enlarge the business. If we measure the amount of work we do with money, each of us should have built a house, but we don't even earn enough to scale up our production.
A good market week for soap makers like Abosede will see them make a profit of about $6. More than half of this profit goes back into buying ingredients for the next batch. Sometimes they take the ingredients on credit, then pay after they've made their sales. But with lenders charging 20 to 50% interest, it is impossible to get ahead.
I usually take loans from various microfinance banks within the range of $125, with weekly installments payments of about $7 over a 6-month period.
The skincare industry in Nigeria and other West African countries like Ghana and Benin Republic depend on black soap made in communities like Odowa. The raw product is then processed and packaged and marked up for sale. The skincare and beauty industry has grown massively, even beyond expectation. But it is sad that
among the millions of dollars that we generate yearly, is not getting to the bottom chain of this local soap maker in the local communities.
Abosede has high hopes for her children. Her youngest son aspires to a career in engineering, and her daughter hopes to one day become a nurse. But without radical change in the beauty industry, these dreams could remain out of reach. Dolakbo Aderiokun, Africa Matters, Odo Owa, Nigeria.
To Zimbabwe now, where the maternal mortality rate has almost halved in the last 5 years, according to government data. A policy of treating pregnant women in public hospitals for free is being credited for the success, as John Nyeshanu reports from the capital, Harare.
Baba George is a more involved father than most. He has played midwife for the births of 3 of his 10 children.
At first he was hesitant, but with time he gained confidence on the second and third children. He had realized that there was no option since we could not afford the required maternity fees.
The cost of maternity care in Zimbabwe is around $100, prohibitingly high for many. So a recent government decision to treat expectant mothers free of charge has proved widely popular.
For me, I'm very happy because I don't have any bills to pay. They are free of charge. We deliver for free. Even if you go for cesarean, you don't pay any amount.
I gave birth like a month ago, and I was in labor for 2 weeks. I gave birth at Harare Hospital, and I'm very thankful for the care that they gave me. The medication and all were all free because of the government.
The government says its intervention facilitated a massive decline in Zimbabwe's maternal mortality rate.
90% of our pregnant women are delivering at health facilities. So what this means is that these deliveries are being conducted by people who are experienced and qualified. Evidence has shown that if a delivery is attended to by someone who has been trained for that is a midwife or a medical doctor, it's highly unlikely that we are going to get a maternal death.
But that has been compromised by repeated strikes and brain drain by health workers due to low pay and difficult working conditions. It's an initiative that has been held by expecting mothers in the nation at large. Lives are being saved largely due to government's interventions. It now remains the hope of many here that the exodus of health professionals is harnessed so that gains made in the decline in maternity mortality rate are not eroded. John Nyeshanu, Africa Matters, Harare, Zimbabwe.
To the Republic of Congo next, where for many women, losing a husband triggers unimaginable injustice at the hands of their in-laws. More often than not, widows find themselves deprived of all inheritance rights, and they're sometimes expelled from their marital homes together with their children. Bryce Kinho has the story.
This is Mpaka, a residential area in Pointe-Noire in the economical capital of the Republic of Congo. Arsène Vissolo and her children have lived here since she was driving out of her marital home. It happened just 1 week after the burial of her husband, who she married on the customary law.
My in-laws had asked me to leave and gave me $41 for transport, plus a few things from home like the freezer and utensils. They only gave me a week to move out. They then gave me $166 to start my life again with my children. I received a total of $207.
Arsène is not alone. Her older sister Nadège Vissolo was stripped of her late husband's assets and driving out of their marital home alongside her children.
I was the sole carer for my late husband, who was paralyzed for 10 years. None of his family came up to help until death took him away from us. When we announced his death, his family suddenly appeared. After the funeral, the in-laws were quick to take away all my possessions, including the marital home.
This practice, which is common in the Congo, also devastates children.
The fact that they gave us a week to leave the house where we lived with my father, to start again from scratch, to manage the food, to pay the rent, it wasn't easy at all. I had to start trading like my mom, and I stopped going to school.
By law, any civil marriage must be preceded by a traditional marriage, but customary marriage has been increasingly expensive, leading couples to enter into open-ended cohabitation. The Congolese family code does not recognize cohabitation or traditional marriage, which makes widows from this situation the target of belligerent in-laws. Children are often the ones who pay the highest price for this injustice. They drop out of school and in the worst cases become street children. Even women who married under civil law also suffer this injustice. And while some are vindicated through the courts, it's not the case for women who married traditionally. A number of initiatives are being taken to raise awareness and assist widows. Jessica Gouma works with NGO, Groupe de réflexion contre les violences basées sur le genre, a think tank dealing with gender-based violence.
We're continuing to advocate that our family code should genuinely recognise dowry and therefore traditional marriage with legal effects, so that women can choose traditional marriage and be protected in the same way as those who get married at the civil registry offices.
Simplifying the process of traditional marriage and legalizing it, as well as encouraging people to draw up wills with bailiffs, could in time help protect widows like Arsène and her older sister Nadège, who continue to suffer after the death of their partners. Brice Keon, Africa Matters, Pointe-Noire, Republic of Congo.
It's much loved worldwide, and East Africa is no different. However, boxing has up till now been regarded as an activity for men in Burundi. But one woman is now changing the narrative as her drive and determination inspires young women to join the sport. Moses Habyarimana explained from Bujumbura.
This is Ornella Habyarimana, the first ever Burundian boxer to compete in the Olympic Games in 2021.
I grew up playing with boys, fighting with them, and I used to watch boxing on TV. And I thought it didn't exist in Burundi until I met one club and asked them if I could join, and they were okay with it.
She says training twice each day, working hard and dedication has helped her achieve what she has. But it hasn't been easy. Her father threw her out for boxing 10 years ago, yet today her parents are proud of her. Ornella has won several bronze and silver medals, and she is already training to compete in next year's Olympic Games in Paris. She has also become an inspiration for other young women joining the sport. Here in Burundi, jogging and exercising is a tradition. On Tuesdays, Thursdays and Sundays, people exercise in open spaces like these. But young women getting into the professional ring is still a surprising sight for many. This is another boxing club in Buterere, a suburb in Bujumbura where young girls are signing up in a big way. They go toe-to-toe with their male counterparts, believing it helps them gain experience.
Earlier on, they regarded it as a male sport because when they saw a lady doing boxing, you were regarded as a spoiled child. But now people are getting used to it because they are getting to understand.
Women are also stepping into the ring to develop self-defense skills.
Those who say that this sport is not for girls, it is because they just don't know the importance of sports. Women can play any kind of sports because they are allowed to.
It's clear that even though boxing is a sport that is underfunded in Burundi, young girls are being inspired by Ornella, and they have no intention of throwing in the towel anytime soon. Moses Habyarimana, Africa Matters, Bujumbura.
And finally this week, Kenya celebrates 60 years of independence. So, we explore Maralal, a small hillside market town and capital of Samburu County in northern Kenya. It's home to a national monument which was used as a venue of the country's independent negotiations. Let's take a closer look. That's our show this week. Share your thoughts and suggestions about the stories you've seen on this episode or ideas on what you'd like us to cover on X using the hashtag Africa Matters. You can also find us on YouTube by searching TRT World Africa Matters. Thanks for watching and goodbye from Nairobi.